Hello, everyone. I'm Stephen Agen.
I'm Zach Thatcher.
And welcome to Video Cascadia by Radio Cascadia and Cobalt Audio Holdings, appearing on prostamerica.com. We're your weekly audio source for every bit of news in Cascadia, unbiased, there all the time, all the news and analysis. Isn't that right?
Absolutely correct.
And now, with our beautiful scarf wall behind us, we are here with a new video podcast for you that we're going to start doing just whenever we get the chance, really. We're thinking twice a week right now. It might be a little bit more, a little bit less as we get started. But the intent, just to split off some of the clips that we do every week in the podcast and get our faces in front of you instead, change things up a little bit. So here today, we're gonna just preview the Vancouver Whitecaps home match against NYCFC coming up on Saturday, and then the Seattle Sounders road match at Sporting Kansas City on Sunday. So normally we have the bigger team, the 5 or 6, but today, just the two of us, Zach. And let's get into it. Let's start with Vancouver, that Saturday match.
Interesting match, yeah. All the points matter. Very end of the season, top of the league. I mean, all Vancouver has to do is win.
You know, NYCFC is coming off of 2 straight victories, and I know that means that some people are kind of high on them. But I don't know that I quite see it yet. To me, the key to this game is, in primary, the Whitecaps just finding a way to bounce back from 2 emotional losses. You know, you lose 6-0 over 2 games to a big rival, and you miss out on a trophy. You miss out on a chance to advance in Champions League, and that's a big deal. You know, that's a tough thing to bounce back from, and the Caps are going to have to do it very quickly if they are to stay in the Shield race and if they are to stay at the top of the West.
Now, talk me through this for a second. When it comes to losing to your rival, a close rival to yours, and losing a piece of silverware that you're used to winning, what kind of, historically speaking, impact does that have on the level of play, do you figure?
Well, you know, you can respond 2 different ways to it. You can collapse, and you can say, okay, we missed out on one of the trophies that we wanted, and now, you know, our season's done. It's not the best season ever. We better give up. Who cares what else is going on? The better teams, the more resilient teams, the teams with real character, and the team I think Vancouver is, they respond with, geez, that one's out of our way now. Let's go win everything else we can. You know, it almost knocks the butterflies out of your stomach, I think would be a way to put it, where you get hit, and then when you get back up, you're not quite as nervous. Now you're into it, you know? Does that make any sense?
It's absolutely fair, yeah. And I guess the other part of that question would be, how crucial are those points, considering the emotional impetus they're going to need to bring to the table?
Well, you look where they're at, and leading the West with a game in hand looks pretty good, but if the Shield expectations, I mean not expectations, but hopes, are to be taken seriously, then really winning out, probably something that's going to have to happen, you'd think. If for no other reason than because the Eastern Conference is so much weaker than the West, and the Red Bulls have just an incredibly simple schedule. I think their 2 toughest games are against Toronto and maybe DC or somebody bad like that. But in that time, they get to host Chicago, host Orlando. There are a lot of easy points for them. And these are the easiest 3 points remaining for Vancouver on their schedule. And I think that the biggest reason for that is just NYC's got to travel 3,000 miles across the country. And sure, they've won 2 straight, but they were winless in the 4 before that. And I believe only 2 or 3 wins in their last 10. Not looking great. Maybe 4. Maybe it's 4. But this is a team that's not going to make the playoffs in the East. This is a team that doesn't have the guile that Vancouver does. And it's a team that Vancouver knows how to trouble in a lot of different ways.
It's absolutely true. But at home, now we talked about a little bit about how, you know, Portland might get lazy at home. You know, sometimes they won't put away every chance that they're given.
Or perhaps they won't counter as quickly as they would on the road.
Exactly.
Just having so much of the ball and having people,
they're nice and comfortable.
Well, it's a question of comfort, but at the same time, and we talked about this on EP 58. If you guys want to go check it out, there's a link in this article. As we talked about in EP 58, it's not maybe even so much as, oh, Portland's playing slower. Portland does play slower, this, that, the other thing. It's more of a, when you're at home and you have a lot of the ball, you don't counter as much. It's harder to counter. There's less reason to counter. And people sit back. They sit deeper. You sit 10 or 11 guys behind the ball, and it's harder to be dynamic. It's harder to build up quickly. It's harder to exploit space when it's not there. And so I think that's what we get from Vancouver. That's what we get from Portland. And I think to segue it to this Vancouver game, NYCFC, you know, so clearly the inferior side in this game, and on the road, they will probably look to put a lot of men behind the ball.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Do you think you're saying there's one of two ways you could go after going 6-0 against your rivals, losing a piece of silverware, et cetera, et cetera? The reason I bring up that Portland situation is because in the situation where they would fold, would that be this game?
Yes, it would. That would be this game, exactly. If we're looking at the 2013 Seattle Sounders narrative of, oh, hey, look, it's all in front of us, and then, oh, wait, none of it is. This is the moment where it all goes downhill. This is, at least for me, sink or swim for the Whitecaps. If their Shield ambitions, if their top of the West ambitions are real, these are the points that they surely need to wrap up. And I believe they will. I think that having the chance to rest on 3 days is tough. Nobody does well on that. But if anybody can handle it, it's Vancouver. They did get to rest a number of the guys on Wednesday who played last Saturday in the Derby, and all of them should be ready. Those are guys like Rivero, Waston will both be ready. Russell Tybert should be fine. Laba played for a while on Wednesday, but was pulled eventually, and so I think he'll go as well. Really a lot of options for the Whitecaps. The Wednesday Champions League debacle comes with the caveat for our Whitecaps supporters, and that's that they should have a pretty full-strength lineup on Saturday. With that, Zach, I think we should go ahead and pick this game real quick.
My favorite part of the show. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first real quick. Vancouver is for real. I'm going to say they are for real. I believe they are for real. And I see 3-0 Vancouver outclassing an NYCFC side that never really gets a chance or gets their feet under them.
That's an absolutely accurate prediction. I was going to say almost exactly the same thing. I'll go ahead and pick New York to score 1 goal, though. I think it'll take Vancouver a little bit longer to...
3-1 then?
3-1 then,
Maybe
yeah.
1-1 at the half or something, and then a couple in the second.
Keep it nice and exciting for us, Whitecaps.
So the Vancouver game is going to be pretty straightforward, but the Seattle game at Sporting Kansas City will not be so straightforward. Sporting's going to miss Matt Beasler and Benny Feilhaber due to yellow card accumulation suspension. That pops up at a really nice time for the Seattle Sounders, for our Cascadia club. But it's a fascinating game for a lot more reasons than that. Sporting and Seattle sit 4 and 5 in the Western Conference table, with the Sounders 1 point ahead, but with a match more played. This is Sporting's chance to leapfrog the Sounders without giving up their game in hand. Seattle will have still played one more time after the 90 on Sunday, but KC could be 2 points ahead. Seattle could be 4 ahead and well clear of KC. Really, really going to be crucial for our positioning in the Western Conference here.
Now, we discussed a little bit on episode 58 and a little bit just in private, off camera here, about how far off both of these teams are from making the Shield. But do you think, how important are these points in terms of jockeying for position in the playoffs? I mean, if you drop points this week, how far off are you really from that, going under that red line?
Well, it's a little bit like I just said. At the end of the day, this is what they call, the proverbial 6-pointer, right? Where, not only do you take 3 points, but you deny your opponent 3 points. And so, do you really need to say anything more than Seattle will be 4 ahead of KC with 1 more played, or 2 back, based on if there's a winner or not? And that is positioning right there. That's what positioning is. I think that at this point, we can project the Whitecaps, LA Galaxy, and FC Dallas to take the top 3 spots in the West
safely.
And that it is, maybe Dallas will drop out and one of Seattle or Kansas City could get hot and pop in. We don't know. But I think it's pretty safe to say that Seattle, Portland, Kansas City are going to fight for 4, 5, 6 with the Earthquakes maybe causing a little bit of trouble somewhere. But that's where the impact is just in that race for 4, 5, 6. This is the type of thing that determines it, is a big game between 2 of them. Vancouver's going to play Dallas twice more this year. They're going to play Sporting Kansas City. Portland's going to play Sporting. So all of our Cascadia clubs still play Sporting. They're all right around the table with Sporting. So it puts a lot of pressure on Kansas City to take points in those games against their Western Conference rivals. And having Seattle come in on a good winning streak, playing really, really hot soccer, 6-0 over the last 180 minutes, and down 2 of your best players, this will be one of the more difficult ones.
Oh, absolutely. Difficult's an understatement.
Well, I mean, you can call it an understatement, but at the same time, they're at Sporting Park playing at home. Seattle had success there a while ago, but not lately.
They have a pretty good all-time record against Sporting, don't they?
It all has
multiple
to do with the
seasons.
late goals, Zach. It started in 2010. It started 2009 with an 89th minute penalty in a U.S. Open Cup quarterfinal, and then Mike Fucito did it to him in 2010 once, and then it happened twice again in 2011, and then a few more times. Jimmy Traore had one a year or two ago. Chad Barrett did it again. Every time Seattle goes to Kansas City, every time Seattle plays Kansas City, it seems like they score a late goal. But I don't know. I talked to Coach Peter Vermees earlier this season by phone. You were there. And he seems like he's got a roster that's really built around chemistry, that's really built around not who is the flashiest player that we could sign. They don't go out and get the flashiest player they can sign. They go out and they get the right guy for their system. What do we need out of a guy playing right midfield this season? And they go and they get that guy with those traits.
Yeah, and I love talking to him, emphasizing he emphasized so strongly, like youth and depth, building that strong foundation to a club's success.
And you can see it with guys like
important.
Amadou Dia and the Eric Palmer Brown that are, even on the back line they have a lot of young guys playing. I don't know what we'll see this weekend just because of the Feilhaber absence and the Beasler absence, but normally that's meant Kevin Ellis slotting in at center back. We can expect a few rookies to get going, to get the call for Kansas City. As far as the Seattle Sounders go, they rested Dempsey and Martins on Wednesday, and they are rearing to go with everybody but Ozzie Alonso ready. I believe he'll sit out this week.
That seems pretty impactful to me.
It'll change the game for sure. Eric Freeberg went most of the game on Wednesday, but it looked like Ziggy Schmidt subbed him out again in the Champions League game with the intent of playing him this weekend. So I wouldn't be shocked to see maybe an Evans Freeberg midfield with Marshall and Scott in the back. But with Evans playing center back on Wednesday, maybe that move is permanent again until Torres is back next season. Who knows?
Now, I know this isn't strictly related to the game. I guess it is to some extent. I see Freeberg play, and I don't see all the same qualities. And I mean, I know that's pretty obvious to anybody who knows the Sounders lineup to any degree. But I see Freeberg play. He doesn't have the same defensive presence that Alonso has. I see that he has a little more, technical brilliance. You see him on the ball. He can pop in those balls over the top, and I feel like he's good at getting the ball out to his outside men. But not having that defensive presence against a team with the quality of Sporting Kansas City, I mean, that might be one of the keys to the game if I'm Peter Vermees.
Well, not having Benny Feilhaber really hurts Kansas City in that department where, that's a guy who sits deep and is gonna look to have space in the center of the park. And when the center mids on the other side don't pressure him, he can sit deep and distribute and play make from a really, really withdrawn role. And not having him there makes it a lot easier on the Seattle midfielder. There'll be a lot less stress on the defense. And Eric Freeberg helps that. Maybe not in the same way that Alonso does. Freeberg covers a similar amount of ground to Alonso. He's just not quite as tenacious when it comes to making the tackle. So you might not see the flashy slide in to win the ball from Freeberg every time like you do Alonso. But the end result of shepherding guys to the sideline, of keeping them from playing, Freeberg actually has a pretty similar function. That part doesn't worry me. I think what worries me is his partner, be it Pineda. I don't think it will be Evans. I mentioned it a minute ago, but I think Evans will stay at center back now until Torres comes back. It's that partner that kind of bothers me. The other interesting thing about this game is where will Nelson Haedo Valdez slot in now that Dempsey and Martins will start up top again? Does he get a shot in the starting lineup? A lot of people are talking about how seems to be better up top than outside, playing outside at midfield. These are all questions we're going to answer this weekend, and we want to give you those answers. But I think to be completely honest, this is one of them where with Vancouver and with Seattle, they're kind of at a turning point, and we're kind of sitting here and waiting to say, okay, are they for real? Where do we go from here?
And now that we're talking about Seattle's midfield, I'm glad this is our talking point right now. I wanted to talk to you just for a second about Lamar Nagel. Now, if you're a Sounders fan, you have mixed opinions on this gentleman. He's had his good seasons, he's had his bad seasons, he's had his good and bad runs of form. But scoring a brace in a CCL group stage game against Vancouver just last week.
In what was effectively a CCL knockout game. At
exactly.
the end of the day, Seattle advanced and won.
Very important. But I feel like now he's being treated a little more as a depth player.
And I think he should be. I think that with Valdez there and with Papa back and with Ivanschitz proving that he is really quite the player, an incredible dead ball, and that's a guy you will see start this weekend at KC is Andres Ivanschitz, I do believe. With Ivanschitz and Papa and Evans and Freeberg. Evans at center back now, whatever. But with the others, it doesn't really leave room for Nagel at outside mid. And there certainly isn't room at forward with Barrett doing pretty well and with, as he returns, and with Dempsey and Martins being Dempsey and Martins. But Valdez, Ivanschitz, Papa, they all bring something that Nagel just doesn't. Nagel's kind of a run at you, run it into a brick wall and see if I can break through it. And
it works pretty well in MLS, surprisingly.
It does sometimes, but Valdez and Ivanschitz and Papa all have a little more to their game, and I think that we'll see them select one of those instead. And that's okay. I think that Lamar Nagel can be a very effective sub for Seattle still. I doubt his ability to be an effective starter in this league.
So your keys to the game, Feilhaber's out. How do you exploit that if you're Siggy Schmidt?
It just means that when you sit back and absorb pressure, you don't have to push up quite as far. You can have your first line of confrontation be a little bit farther, a little bit deeper, just because there's nobody pulling the strings from back there to hit a 60-yard diagonal that unlocks everything. That really helps. I think that the key for Seattle is go and be patient. Let Dempsey, Martins, and Valdez create and interplay and combine, and see if you can catch one off of an even shit set piece that looks like it might still catch people off guard and appears to be so dangerous, and then keep it to 0 at the back and walk out with a point if nothing else happens. Those are my keys.
Now, I think it's safe to say you know more about the Sounders than me, but when we're talking about play styles, I think it's actually a little more beneficial for Seattle's play style with Feilhaber out, having that line of confrontation a little further back. They have a little more space to kind of pass around in the backfield, kind of emphasize that possession style that you like to see the Sounders play away.
I think what it gives them is a little bit more room to counter. I think that there'll be that space in behind, and Martins will be faster than anybody on the KC back line. I think that when Seattle is able to sit a little deeper, they really are defensively very sound. I don't know that it does anything for Seattle in keeping possession. I think it just encourages KC to come out of their shell and gives Seattle the best chance to not give up a goal. Speaking of that, it's time to pick this one, and this will be our last bit of action here today on Video Cascadia, Episode 1. And I'm going to pick it first. I have Seattle Sounders, 1-0 late, like always.
I love it. I'll take that's tough. I'll take the Sounders winning by 1, but I'll pick them 2-1. I'll take 1-1 at the half with the Freeberg set piece in 90+4.
Late. It has to be late against SKC. And everybody, that's going to be it for Episode 1 of Video Cascadia by Radio Cascadia. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you again soon, be it for our video podcast releases or for our audio podcast releases. So until next time, I'm Stephen Agen.
Zach Thatcher.
Take care.